You just brought up a really good point, and I think the audience needs to know this. There's a lot of accusation that happens in America when someone does make it successfully. But what they don't see is the $500,000 that was invested. They don't see the fact that you work 18, 20 hours, 7 days a week. I mean, I've been there and I see this. So the other people who don't see it is the legislator. And I'm going to tell you, I have some interviews coming up with some players who can have a difference here in the state of California. So as someone who's investing, what would you like to see in the change of structure as the government's trying to figure out how to get out of this budget nightmare to bring business to our state and keep them here? Is there any suggestion that you can make to them?
I think in general, if you talk about from a tax standpoint,
yeah.
So if you see from the taxes when you have the capital gain tax, they don't take into consideration the time, the investment, and the original capital that was invested into the business.
And the deferral of income that you don't take as the owner many times as well.
That's right. Yeah. So if that gets taken into consideration, it makes a huge difference. And they shouldn't put a lot of blocks in front of the angel investors, because angel investors are risking a lot. Mm-hmm. They're risking their capital into businesses that may never succeed. Mm-hmm. So there should be more ways to ease the road for the angel investors in order to invest. At the same time, I just want to bring up another point that you were talking about, the entrepreneurs themselves. Now, the entrepreneurs, they think that I come up with an idea, I start a business, and I'm financially free. But that's not the case. They forget that it takes a lot of work, 18-hour days, 90-hour weeks.
Last one paid, if ever.
Yeah, if ever. So they forget that it may not work, it may work. So it's really a lot of work, a lot of risk. They need to understand that they should have some savings, maybe keep their day jobs until the business is launched. So there's a lot of risk, and I would encourage entrepreneurs to go and really understand the ecosystem of the angel investment, of how businesses are started, and to understand better what it takes to get a business from zero to a financially viable business.
Have we seen the pulling back of the unrealistic expectations on valuation? I mean, we saw in the early days, of course, prior to the internet bubble, just completely insane valuations that had no basis. We saw some pullback into failure, but we're starting to see this again, I think, in the green environment. There's no income, there's no proven revenue model, and yet somehow they have these huge valuations. How do you manage the expectations of an entrepreneur that comes up and goes, I have this billion-dollar idea, I know it's going to make it, and you're going, you have no revenue, how do you argue that position?
What you do is you value the business based on today. Mm-hmm. You don't value it based on its potential revenue in the future. Mm-hmm. So do you have any sales, any revenue today? If you do, then we decide basically, well, it has so much revenue, and there are many formulas that you could go after. But you look at the business today, you look at the risk of the business success, and then you decide what the value is. But you can't value it on $1 billion potential revenue. Right. And then you look at how much can this business grab out of a $1 billion market. So if a business can grab 5% of a $1 billion market, then they might have a better chance of succeeding or getting to maybe $50 million or $100 million type company. And so it's all based on the current revenue and the potential market, and how much risk is it to grab that market.
So how much of the valuation in today's is the management team? I know that many organizations brought people unrelated to the entrepreneurship part of the family, I guess you could say, in order to raise funds. How much of that is still going on today? Are there hired guns still being brought into companies just to raise funds?
There always are, but we look at the management team. So actually there's a controversial email that I sent around to TehcCoastAngels just a couple days ago. Is it the jockey or is it the horse? Which one do we bet on? Well, it's a controversial subject. Some of the TehcCoastAngel members say it's the jockey, and some say it's the horse. So I got a pretty hot conversation going on. But there was a study done by several universities, including USC and Chicago, University of Chicago, that says it's the horse. So for me, it's really both. And it may be a 50-50 split, because if you don't have a good business model, no matter how great the management team is, they're not going to be able to take that business.
If there's no commercial desire, if you don't have the finance capability, I can understand where your point comes from.
And the same thing, if you have a great business, but there's no jockey to take it to the next level, it's also not going to work. So it's really both. But initially, you're going to look at the management team, how enthusiastic they are, how much do they understand the business, if they've done it before, even better. You see some management, they've never done it before, but they have the right idea and they know they can execute.
Do you still expect the owners or the original investors to have been slave to their credit cards and fully in debt? I mean, I've seen this over the years, that until you show us that you've spent everything you have, basically, we're not interested. Are we still seeing that in the market today?
It's even more now.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, because valuations are down and investments are down. So average TehcCoastAngel investment was probably, let's say, an average of $750,000. Now an average of probably $300,000, maybe $400,000.
That is a substantial change.
It's a substantial change. So we're looking for more validation.
On that same level, then, does an entrepreneur need to come with revenue? Are you taking pre-revenue companies? And at what point do you make the decision, yes or no, on that basis?
TehcCoastAngels, we have a program called Seed Track at TehcCoastAngel. Okay. So the Seed Track program really takes pre-revenue type companies. And these types of companies are companies that are valued at somewhere around $500,000, and they need less than $100,000 to prove their concept. Okay. So they don't need to have revenues. But there are not many companies that fit that profile. So most companies that TehcCoastAngels or angel groups in general invest in are companies that have a proven model. So they have some paying customers, maybe a lot of non-paying customers, but it's basically, we want to know if the dog will eat the dog food. So if there is a demand for that product or that service, and there is proof for that, regardless of how much revenue there is, it could be small revenue, but at least we know there is a demand.
So post-revenue, then, I think when you come in, are you coming in as an accelerator more than a base investor? Is that kind of the concept you're looking for? We know the machine's on the track, it's ready to go. I know many companies are short of basics like marketing and R&D money. What's your primary experience, and what is it that money is funneled towards as you move into?
In the Seed Track type program, we actually get involved personally into the company. So we will actually help them take an executive position in the management and help them get to the next level. So that's kind of part of it. In the general TehcCoastAngels, we take a position on the board of directors of that company, but we don't really actually take active management control or management position into the business. But to tell you the truth, what happens is nowadays, most of the time you're going to see companies that are requiring money, and if they don't have a proof of concept, then they're probably not going to get investment from angel groups. So you got to have some proof of concept in order to really get some capital.
Now, do you see beta as proof of concept? I've heard this argument that if you've got a university or a large business that's willing to integrate and spend a couple $1 million to run an across-the-board beta test, even though they're not paying for it yet, do you see that as the same value, equivalent value, any value? I mean, does it make sense for someone to try to get a beta test going?
It really depends. And I could tell you one example that was presented to me not long ago. It was a company that received somewhere around $15 million in investment from foundations, from the federal government as grants, and they were still an R&D type company. So they did not have a plan for how to sell their it was a pharmaceutical related. So they did not have any.
It sounds
plan.
like the government. I'm not surprised.
So it was they did not have a business. They had, but it's a great concept. They were trying to cure certain cancers, but at the same time they did not have a plan on how to reach.
It's that conversion issue, right?
It's that conversion. How do you convert from being a lab into being a real valid business? So
in the couple minutes that we have left, tell me a little bit about the profile of an entrepreneur, if you can. I mean, what do you think it takes in today's world to become an entrepreneur?
Tenacity.
Okay.
Persistence. Taking risk. Maybe that's the definition of an entrepreneur.
It could be. Do you see education as a challenge in today's market? I mean, I know that many of the super entrepreneurs I've known don't have college backgrounds and are the most successful. But in today's market, with technology and some of the advancements, do you have a minimum floor that you look at, or is it totally based on the business that you're talking about?
Well, the super entrepreneurs, I probably know who you're talking about, but you got to have some floor, I think. Without having some education, you probably won't be able to reach certain levels. But as you notice from my minimal definition, I didn't mention education. But education, I think it's important, very much.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time. I think that the audience and I certainly did get information that's very valuable, and I really appreciate your coming in, and I hope you'll come back sometime in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, JJ.
Have a good day.
I'm Kevin McDonald, and you've been watching EyeOnBusiness.